it's not the fancy stuff, right? It's not the 2-hour morning routine or whatever. I don't need some fancy app to help me with a routine. It's really the common sense practices that we're ignoring because we think we need some fancy system or we think it's got to be complicated. But then, I talk to somebody and be like, were you getting enough sleep? Well, no, like I have a glass of wine and I'm up till midnight because finally the kids are in bed and I have time to myself. So no, I'm not really getting enough sleep. And like, are you moving your body? Are you getting any exercise? No, I'm kind of chained to my desk all day and I don't get up enough and I never work out and whatever. But I don't know why I'm stressed and I don't know why I'm tired and I don't know, right? And it's like it's those basic core foundational things that sound like so boring and so simple. If you tell somebody, well, get more sleep, get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep and make sure you're moving your body every day and maybe actually get outside in the sunshine every once in a while. And it's like, well, yeah, duh, tell me something I don't know, right? And are you doing it? That's the thing. Like we're ignoring these just core foundational pieces of self-care and then expecting ourselves to be able to be at our best
by helping them, empowering them to have peace and calmness and less stress. And it unlocks all this goodness that then flows into all the other people in their life, their family, their employees, their business partners or whoever they're interacting with, their clients. So that's really cool. So is your coaching business mostly focused on female entrepreneurs, moms? Does that matter? I'm just kind of curious who you really love, who you get the most charge out of helping, and then what, and then also like, so who, and then kind of the what, as far as, is it all about like high performance, instilling these habits and helping them have balance, or like sort of what's the focus of your coaching?
Yeah, I would say the majority of my clients are female entrepreneurs, but I do work with some people that are leaders in the corporate space, men and women. So I do both. I would say the majority of my clients have always been female entrepreneurs, though some are moms, some are not.
Okay.
And it's funny because I had found myself at some point feeling like, it's kind of a marketing thing, right? We have the marketing brain. And so we always are told to niche down.
Yeah.
And in terms of coaching, even, I felt like, it's got to be one thing. And high performance coaching, the way I was taught through Brendon Burchard, there's actually a very specific structure to that. Like, to call it certified high performance coaching, you follow a particular format. And I have other coaching certifications as well. And really the place I've gotten to is kind of lightening up in terms of what I define as coaching. So I would say I do a mix of coaching and consulting because as somebody that's been in business for 11 years, grown a really successful business, my marketing and advertising background, I am a mom, and I have been, like you said, married for over 20 years. So I have like the family kind of background. I have all this neuroscience background and tons and tons of research that I've done in habits, have the business background. So it's really interesting. The coaching sessions end up being a mix. Like sometimes we'll start off and we'll be talking about, business tactics and how to market something and messaging and things like that and somebody's offers. And then next thing I know, we're talking about how to regulate your nervous system and how to reduce stress. And I'm having this issue with my child and how we interact. And right. And so it kind of runs the gamut. So, the marketer side of my brain is can't be that broad, but honestly, that's where it ends up going. I would say, finding clarity and reducing overwhelm are kind of the biggest areas that we talk about. And then business, of course.
Yeah. And it's funny, like as a marketer too, it's like, you're like, you really, if you niche down, it's so much easier to sell stuff. And one of the things I teach people from my own experience is like, we think of target markets or identities, or I'm sorry, as niches, as either like, we think of heavily as identity, right? Like it's a female entrepreneur. She's 40 years old. She's got 3 kids, whatever. Like we have these like avatars.
Yeah.
However, just as important and sometimes more important is like intent, right? So you can have a very diverse mix of types of people you work with, but if they all have a common intent, like that could be your niche, right? And so, and then, the easiest thing to market is a combination of both, like an intersection. Like I only work with 40-year-old women who want this intent.
Yeah.
And some people do that and it makes their marketing way easier because you know exactly who you're talking to and what they want. However, like I purposely don't do that because I think it'd be super boring. So like in my groups that I run, I purposefully have people from all different industries.
Yeah.
It's totally a mix of male and female, sometimes majority one way or the other. Some family people, some single people, some younger, some older. Like, and that just creates a great diversity in this setting that I'm creating, which is group, masterminds. It just creates so much diversity of thought and like experience and point of view.
Yeah.
But they all have the same intent, right? Like they all want to use podcast guesting to grow their business. Many are coaches and consultants. Some are agency owners. So I think that's what I picked up with yours is like they all have a common intent. Like I need to reduce my overwhelm. I need less stress. I need more clarity.
Yeah.
And so their particular job or business or gender or whatever doesn't necessarily matter, right? Because they all have a common intent. So I love that, and I love that you recognize that and like kind of lead with it, right? Like most people would be like, "Oh, this is my ideal client," but you're like, "Yeah, I kind of work with everybody, and I can kind of do everything." But I think the key with the marketing, and you've been nodding along, so I think you'll agree, is like, while that's all true, I'm sure you still lead with in a conversation, like, here's like the main 3 outcomes I can provide you, because you have to be able to name the intent, right? Now you get in there and it's like, talk about my offer, talk about my kids, because you said it earlier, sell them what they want, give them what they need. And sometimes those are different things on the front end and what happens when you're actually working with someone. So I love all that. Love the vision. Love where you're headed and like continuing to lean into speaking and coaching and maybe writing another book. But for the rest of our time, Julie, I would love sort of hand the mic to you and just let you do sort of a mini training or an overview on what you think is most pertinent from your book and from your coaching, for that matter, around high performance habits. So, entrepreneurs, the people that you work with basically are listening, overwhelmed, stress, like I'm growing my business, but I also got a family and like dealing with all this stuff. What are like those keystone things that people can do to really make a difference as soon as possible?
Yeah. So in terms of the book, you nailed it earlier when you said like we're not doing the simple things. We're not doing the things that are really common sense. It's one of my favorite phrases is it might be common sense, but it's not always common practice. Because that's what I really found when I looked at what worked over the years of me trying to dial all this in. I was like, it's not the fancy stuff, right? It's not the 2-hour morning routine or whatever. I don't need some fancy app to help me with a routine. It's really the common sense practices that we're ignoring because we think we need some fancy system or we think it's got to be complicated. But then, I talk to somebody and be like, were you getting enough sleep? Well, no, like I have a glass of wine and I'm up till midnight because finally the kids are in bed and I have time to myself. So no, I'm not really getting enough sleep. And like, are you moving your body? Or are you getting any exercise? No, I'm kind of chained to my desk all day and I don't get up enough and I never work out and whatever. But I don't know why I'm stressed and I don't know why I'm tired and I don't know, right? And it's like it's those basic core foundational things that sound like so boring and so simple. If you tell somebody, well, get more sleep, get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep and make sure you're moving your body every day and maybe actually get outside in the sunshine every once in a while. And it's like, well, yeah, duh. Tell me something I don't know, right?
Right.
And are you doing it? That's the thing. Like we're ignoring these just core foundational pieces of self-care and then expecting ourselves to be able to be at our best, for our brains to be, clear and sharp, and for us to be able to really analyze a situation or come up with something really creative in our marketing, but we're not doing basic self-care. And so that's really where the habits in the book come in. And I've named two of the
So
4.
sleep and exercise are 2, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really, kind of get into like the neuroscience and the science behind like why they really matter. Because I knew for me, like I would hear it and I would be one of those people who'd be like, yeah, more sleep, whatever. You gloss over it. So I really kind of needed to know the science behind it and how it was really going to benefit me in my business and in my day-to-day life. And then once I started really understanding like what was happening, like when you sleep and the fact that your brain's doing a lot of cleanup processes when you sleep and it's really consolidating information and just how important it is. And that I was doing things that I thought would maybe help me sleep and unwind, but it was really like the opposite of good sleep habits, like having that glass of wine at night
Yep.
thinking like, well, it's a depressant. It's going to help me sleep. No, you mentioned earlier your heart rate variance score, right? Like you're really messing up your recovery when you sleep when you do this. And I was doing all these little things that were just adding up into these bad habits that were making things worse for me. And I was definitely the person chained to my desk, not getting up, not moving enough. And I'd be like, been with my husband like 27 years. He doesn't care. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't have to look in a bikini or
The
whatever.
bikini body, yeah.
And
Right,
then
you're saying, no, it's not about that, right? It's actually about how you feel, your mental health, your
exactly.
anxiety, your stress.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I'm sure you might get into the other two, but even with like sleep and exercise, um, let's just say exercise, just to
Yeah.
keep it as simple as possible. I know 100% personally, like I took a walk before we got on this call. I try really hard in the afternoons because I'm on Zoom all day, right? Like between coaching and calls and interviews and all that stuff. I call them God walks. I'm
Mm.
a Christian. So for me, it's like I leave my phone at home and it's literally a 15-minute walk around my neighborhood with no phone. And like, it's just kind of an active walking, thinking, prayer sort of time. It makes such a difference. It's only 15 minutes, especially if it happens to be sunny and nice out. But even if it's not, that makes a big difference.